My name is Kimberly Williams, and I just turned 32. 5 years ago, when I landed my dream job as a tech executive, I started sending my parents $5,000 every month. It filled me with pride knowing I could support them after everything they sacrificed for me. Then came that text from my brother Justin, for words that shattered my world. The ATM just paid again. Little did I know how deep their betrayal went. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever gone above and beyond for family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. Growing up, our family was solidly middle class. At least that's how it seemed at first. My dad, Martin Williams, worked as an accountant at a local firm in Connecticut while my mom, Teresa, taught third grade at the elementary school. We lived in a modest three-bedroom house with a small backyard where Dad would grill on weekends and Mom would tend to her flower garden. My younger brother Justin and I shared a decent childhood with birthday parties, holiday celebrations, and occasional family trips to the Jersey Shore. But beneath the surface, things weren't as stable as they appeared. I started noticing the tension around bill-paying time, the hushed arguments between my parents late at night, the way Mom would scrutinize grocery store receipts and clip coupons obsessively. Dad would snap at us when we asked for new clothes or school supplies, saying money didn't grow on trees. When I turned 14, everything changed dramatically. Dad lost his accounting job during company downsizing. He was devastated, his identity deeply tied to being the family provider. For months, he spent days in his bathrobe, scanning job listings and sending out resumes that rarely got responses. His depression was palpable, filling our home with a heaviness none of us knew how to lift. Mom took on extra work, substituting at different schools whenever possible and picking up evening shifts at the local department store. I would often come home to find Justin alone, warming up microwave dinners because neither parent was home. Mom would stumble in around 9, exhausted, her teacher's smile long faded. That's when I stepped up. At 15, I got my working papers and landed a job at the local ice cream shop. I worked weekends and after school, standing on sore feet for hours, coming home smelling like sugar and dairy. Every paycheck went straight to Mom, who would tear up gratefully as I handed it over. "You're such a good girl, Kimberly," she would say, tucking the money into her purse. "This helps more than you know." Justin, for years younger than me, was shielded from most of our financial troubles. He remained carefree, playing video games and hanging out with friends while I worked. When he asked why I was always working, Mom would intervene. "Your sister is just saving for college, honey. Don't worry about it." That became the family narrative. Kimberly works because she wants to. Kimberly doesn't mind missing school events. Kimberly is fine eating ramen while we order pizza. No one acknowledged the increasing pressure placed on my teenage shoulders. In high school, I doubled down on both work and academics. I understood education was my ticket out of financial instability. Between shifts at the ice cream shop and later as a waitress at the local diner, I maintained a perfect GPA, joined every academic club that might look good on college applications, and spent countless late nights studying. My hard work paid off when I received a partial scholarship to Boston University. It wasn't enough to cover everything, so I continued working throughout college. While other students enjoyed the full college experience, I juggled 30-hour work weeks with a full course load. My social life was practically non-existent. Dating? Out of the question. I lived on coffee and determination, often studying in the campus library until it closed at 2 in the morning. Dad eventually found work at a smaller accounting firm, but at a significantly lower salary. The financial strain never fully lifted from our family. During college breaks, when I came home, I noticed my parents had aged beyond their years. The constant stress had etched permanent worry lines into their faces. "We're so proud of you," Dad would say, his eyes lighting up when I shared my academic achievements. "You're going to break the cycle." Those words fueled me through 4 grueling years. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in computer science and business management. When several tech companies started recruiting me, I felt like everything I had sacrificed was finally paying off. I landed a job at Horizon Tech, a rapidly growing company in Boston. My starting salary was more money than my parents had ever made combined. The first thing I did after signing my contract was call home. "Mom, Dad, I did it," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I got the job. I can help now. For real." 3 years into my career at Horizon, I received a major promotion to executive product manager. My salary jumped significantly, and for the first time, I had more money than I needed for myself. The decision to help my parents financially seemed obvious. They had struggled for so long, and despite their flaws, they were my family. "I want to send you guys some money each month," I told them during a weekend visit home. $5,000, just to make things easier. Their reaction was everything I had hoped for. Mom cried. Dad hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. Even Justin seemed impressed, giving me a rare look of admiration. "You don't have to do this, sweetheart," Mom said, though I noticed she didn't actually decline. "I want to," I insisted. "You sacrificed so much for us. Let me help now that I can." That began the 5-year arrangement. Every month, $5,000 transferred automatically from my account to theirs. In the beginning, they would call to thank me, telling me about bills they had paid off or small indulgences they could finally afford. I felt wonderful, picturing my hardworking parents finally able to relax a little and enjoy life. Little did I know what was really happening behind the scenes. The first hint that something wasn't right came about 2 years into our arrangement. I visited home for Thanksgiving, driving the 3 hours from Boston to Connecticut in heavy holiday traffic. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a brand new Lexus SUV parked where Mom's old Honda usually sat. "Whose car is that?" I asked as I lugged my overnight bag up the front steps. "Oh, that's mine," Mom said casually, opening the door to welcome me. We decided it was time for something more reliable. Dad emerged from the living room, looking healthier and more relaxed than I had seen him in years. He was wearing a new-looking golf polo and designer watch I didn't recognize. "There's my successful daughter," he announced, embracing me. "How's the corporate world treating you?" Throughout that weekend, I noticed other changes. The living room had been completely redecorated with high-end furniture. The kitchen sported granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. Mom was wearing jewelry I'd never seen before, and Dad kept mentioning his golf club membership. When I asked about these upgrades, they always had ready explanations. The furniture was on a 0% financing plan. The kitchen renovation was necessary because of water damage. The jewelry was a special anniversary splurge. Everything had a convenient justification that made it hard for me to question further, without seeming petty. Justin arrived late to Thanksgiving dinner, sauntering in without helping with any preparations. At 24, he still lived at home and, as I learned during dinner conversation, had recently quit his job at the local sporting goods store. "I'm taking time to find my true path," he explained when I asked about his employment status. Despite having no income, he was sporting a new iPhone and designer sneakers. "How are you affording all your things without a job?" I asked him privately as we washed dishes after dinner. He shrugged. "Mom and Dad help me out while I'm figuring things out. They understand this is just a phase." Something about this didn't sit right with me, but I pushed the feeling aside. My parents deserved nice things after years of struggle, didn't they? And if they wanted to help Justin, that was their choice. A few months later, I received a call from Mom 3 days before my monthly transfer was scheduled. "Kimberly, honey, I hate to ask, but is there any way you could send this month's money a little early? Dad and I have a payment due, and we're a bit short." "Sure, no problem," I replied immediately. "Is everything okay?" "Oh yes, just a timing issue with bills," she assured me. I sent the money that day. But these timing issues became increasingly frequent. Soon, Mom was calling regularly to ask when exactly the money would arrive. If I ever mentioned having a large expense coming up myself, like when I needed to replace my laptop for work, both parents became noticeably anxious. "You're still sending the usual amount this month, right?" Dad would ask, a hint of worry in his voice. "Of course," I would assure them, feeling a twinge of resentment that they never asked about my financial well-being. During one visit, I arrived early and overheard an argument between my parents in the kitchen. "She'll be here any minute," Mom was saying in a hushed but urgent tone. "Put those brochures away." I cleared my throat as I entered, and they both jumped, looking guilty. A colorful travel pamphlet was hastily shoved into a drawer. "What brochures?" I asked casually. "Oh, just some junk mail," Dad dismissed with a wave. "How was your drive?" Later, when they thought I was napping, I overheard another fragment of conversation. "We can't tell her about the Bahamas trip yet," Mom whispered. "Not until after we've secured the additional funds for the house repairs." House repairs? The house looked immaculate to me. And they were planning a Bahamas vacation? On a teacher's pension and reduced accounting salary? The math wasn't adding up, but every time I tried to ask more detailed questions about their finances, they would change the subject or make me feel intrusive for asking. That summer, they threw an elaborate birthday party for Justin, complete with catering and a live band in the backyard. When I commented on how expensive it all seemed, Mom laughed it off. "We've just gotten better at budgeting, thanks to your help." My best friend Alicia Martinez noticed the change in my demeanor whenever I discussed my family. Over dinner at her apartment one night, she finally confronted me. "Kim, I need to ask you something," she said, refilling my wine glass. "How much money are you sending your parents every month?" I hesitated before answering. $5,000. Alicia nearly choked on her wine. $5,000? Every month? For how long? About 2 years now, I admitted. "That's over $100,000, she calculated quickly. "And they're still asking for more? Something doesn't add up." "They sacrificed a lot for me growing up," I defended, though my voice lacked conviction. "Did they? Or did you sacrifice for them?" Alicia challenged gently. "You were working at 15 while your brother never had to lift a finger. Now you're still supporting everyone. When does it end?" Her words stung because part of me knew she was right, but acknowledging that would mean confronting some painful truths about my family dynamics. "They're my parents," I said finally. "What am I supposed to do? Just cut them off?" Alicia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm not saying cut them off. I'm saying you deserve transparency about where such a significant amount of your money is going. And maybe some gratitude, too." I nodded, but changed the subject. Deep down, questions were multiplying, but family loyalty kept me from pursuing answers too aggressively. Around the 3-year mark of our arrangement, I noticed my parents had stopped expressing gratitude altogether. The monthly transfer had become an expectation rather than a gift. If I visited, they would often mention expensive purchases or plans within hours of my arrival, as if reminding me of the lifestyle I was funding. One particularly painful incident occurred during a family dinner with some of their friends. Someone asked what I did for a living, and I explained my role at Horizon Tech. "Our daughter has always been the responsible one," Mom interjected with a laugh. "Thank goodness someone in the family knows how to make money." Everyone chuckled, but the comment felt dismissive of all my hard work. It wasn't just about making money. I had sacrificed and struggled for years to get where I was. The way she phrased it made it sound like I was simply lucky rather than dedicated and hardworking. Later that evening, I overheard Dad talking to one of his friends on the back porch. "College expenses these days are criminal," his friend was lamenting. "I've got 2 in school now, and it's bleeding us dry." "That's why you should have invested in a daughter like Kimberly," Dad replied with a laugh. "Best retirement plan we ever made." I froze just outside the door, a cold feeling spreading through my chest. Is that how they viewed me? As an investment? A retirement plan? I retreated to my old bedroom before he could see me, fighting back tears. The incident that should have been my final warning came when I was briefly hospitalized for exhaustion and dehydration after pushing myself too hard at work during a critical product launch. I called my parents from the hospital, thinking they would be concerned. "Oh no, that's terrible timing," Mom said after I explained where I was. "We were counting on this month's money for the contractor deposit. Not are you okay? Or do you need anything? But concern about whether I would still send money." I was discharged the next day and sent the transfer as usual, telling myself they were just worried about their plans being disrupted and not deliberately being insensitive. But the seed of doubt had been planted. It was growing stronger with each interaction, though I continued to water it with excuses and justifications born of familial obligation. I wasn't ready to face what was becoming increasingly obvious. Little did I know, the undeniable truth was about to hit me like a freight train. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I was working from home, finalizing a presentation for an important client meeting, when my phone buzzed with a text from Justin. The ATM just paid again. We should hit Mackey's for drinks tonight before Mom and Dad blow it all on their secret project. I stared at the message, confusion giving way to a sickening realization. This wasn't meant for me. Justin had obviously sent it to the wrong person. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I tried to formulate a response. Before I could, 3 dots appeared, followed quickly by another message. "Oh, God, Kim, I'm so sorry that wasn't for you." Then, immediately after, "It was just a joke between friends." My hands were shaking as I typed. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Justin was clearly panicking, trying to figure out how to explain. Finally, a message came through. "Can I call you?" "No," I replied firmly. "I want you to tell me exactly what that meant. In writing." The minutes ticked by. 5, 10. Finally, my phone rang instead. It was Justin. I declined the call and texted again. Either explain by text or "I'm calling Mom and Dad right now to ask them what the secret project is and why I'm being referred to as an ATM." That got a response. "It's not what you think. We have a family group chat. Sometimes we talk about the money you send. It's just stupid jokes." My throat tightened. "Show me the chat." "Kim, come on. Show me the chat right now, Justin. All of it. Or I swear I will never send another penny and will block all of you." 20 excruciating minutes later, my email pinged with screenshots. Dozens of them. With trembling fingers, I opened the first image and began to read. The group chat was titled Family Finances. The participants were Mom, Dad, and Justin. As I scrolled through message after message, my vision blurred with tears. "Dad, 3 years ago, deposit came through. Kimberly's contribution received." "Mom, 3 years ago, thank goodness. I was worried after that comment she made about her rent increase." "Justin, 3 years ago, is she still sending the full 5K? "Dad, 3 years ago, of course. Your sister may be smart with computers, but not so much with family boundaries, lol." The messages continued, becoming increasingly callous as time went on. "Mom, 2 years ago, the ATM has paid out. Vacation fund is growing nicely." "Dad, 2 years ago, don't call her that on here, Teresa. She might see it somehow." "Mom, 2 years ago, she never touches my phone. Besides, she's too busy working to visit anyway." The casual cruelty intensified with each screenshot. They discussed strategies for ensuring I kept sending money. They celebrated purchases made with Kimberly's dollars. They complained when I briefly mentioned financial stress during company restructuring. "Justin, 1 year ago, should we be worried? Kim said something about budget cuts at her company." "Dad, 1 year ago. I already handled it. Told her about that fictional medical test I needed. She'll keep paying." "Mom, 1 year ago, Martin, you're terrible. But it worked, didn't it?" The fictional medical test. I remembered that conversation clearly. Dad had called, sounding worried, saying he needed some specialized cardiac screening not covered by insurance. I had been concerned and immediately offered to help cover the costs. There had been no test. It was all a manipulation. The most recent messages were the most devastating. "Dad, 1 month ago, lake house closing next week. Don't forget we're telling Kimberly it's for roof repairs on this house." "Mom, 1 month ago, she never checks anyway. Too trusting for her own good." "Justin, 1 month ago, when do I get my new car? You promised once the lake house was secured." "Mom, 1 month ago, your sister's bonus season is coming up. We'll ask for extra then." "Dad, 1 month ago, maybe we should start mentioning grandchildren. That might open up the vault even more, lol. They had bought a lake house with my money. After telling me they needed help with essential home repairs. They were planning to manipulate me for more, by dangling the prospect of grandchildren. And they found it amusing. The final screenshots showed discussions about a family vacation to Europe. A vacation I knew nothing about because I hadn't been invited. Justin, 2 weeks ago, should we invite Kim to Europe? Dad, 2 weeks ago, and have her see how we're spending? Bad idea. Mom, 2 weeks ago, besides, she'd probably just work the whole time. You know how she is. I sat in stunned silence, phone clutched in my hand, as tears streamed down my face. 5 years. 60 months. $300,000. All while they laughed behind my back, called me an ATM, and deliberately excluded me from family experiences my money had funded. Through blurry eyes, I scrolled back further, looking for any indication that they appreciated me beyond my financial contributions. Any expression of love or concern for my well-being. There was nothing. My phone buzzed again. Justin. Kim, please say something. I couldn't respond. I couldn't form words. My entire understanding of my family relationship had just been shattered. The sacrifices I'd made since I was 15 years old. The extra shifts I'd worked. The social events I'd missed. The relationships I'd neglected. All to help a family that saw me as nothing more than a cash dispenser. Instead of responding to Justin, I opened my banking app and stared at the scheduled transfer set for the following week. $5,000. My finger hovered over the cancel button, but I couldn't press it yet. Despite everything, some twisted sense of obligation still held me back. I needed to see more. Summoning my technical skills, I requested access to the shared family cloud storage account I had set up and paid for years ago. They had apparently forgotten I had administrator access. Within minutes, I was scrolling through family photos I'd never seen before. My parents and Justin at the beach house I knew nothing about. Holiday celebrations I hadn't been invited to. A family cruise from the previous summer. My brother's extravagant 26th birthday party with dozens of guests in what appeared to be a rented venue. The most painful discovery was a folder labeled Lake House Closing. It contained photos of my parents and brother, champagne glasses raised, standing in front of a beautiful waterfront property. The date stamp was just 2 weeks ago. The caption on one photo read, Freedom 59, Early Retirement Here We Come. Early retirement funded entirely by me, while I worked 60-hour weeks in Boston. I continued digging and found a spreadsheet titled Kimberly Fund Allocation. It detailed exactly how they had spent my money over the years. The mortgage payoff on their primary home. Justin's living allowance. The down payment on the lake house. Vacations. Golf club membership. Luxury purchases. Less than 10% had gone to actual bills and necessities. At the bottom of the spreadsheet was a section labeled Future Asks, with notes on how to approach me for additional funds beyond the monthly transfer. Ideas included medical emergencies, home repair emergencies, and eventually grandchild educational fund, with a note that read, she'll definitely go for that one. It was all so calculated. So deliberate. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was a complete mockery of my trust and love for them. I finally texted Justin back with just 4 words. I've seen enough. Thanks. Then I turned off my phone, called in sick to work for the first time in my career, and fell apart completely. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of tears and disbelief. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't concentrate on anything except the screenshots and images burned into my brain. I alternated between sobbing uncontrollably and sitting in numb silence, staring at the wall of my apartment. My phone accumulated dozens of missed calls and messages from my family. I couldn't bear to read or listen to any of them. What possible explanation could justify years of such calculated deception? On the 3rd day, my doorbell rang. I ignored it until a familiar voice called through the mail slot. Kimberly Williams, I know you're in there. Open this door right now, or I'm calling the super to do a welfare check. It was Alicia. Somehow, she always knew when I needed her most. I dragged myself to the door, painfully aware of my unwashed hair and tear-stained face. The moment she saw me, her expression shifted from annoyance to deep concern. Oh my God, Kim. What happened? I couldn't even speak. I just handed her my phone with the screenshot still open. She sat on my couch, scrolling silently, her expression darkening with each swipe. "These absolute monsters," she finally whispered. I knew something was off, but that broke the dam again. I collapsed beside her, sobbing into her shoulder as she held me tightly. "They called me an ATM," I choked out between sobs. "They've been laughing at me for years. Using me. I'm such a fool." "No," Alicia said firmly. "You're not a fool. You're a loving, generous daughter who was taken advantage of by people who should have protected you. This is not your fault. But it felt like my fault. I should have seen the signs. Should have questioned more. Should have demanded accountability for how my money was being spent. Instead, I had trusted blindly, wanting so desperately to believe my family valued me beyond my financial contributions. $300,000, I whispered. That's how much I've given them over 5 years. And they were planning to take more." Alicia's eyes widened. "That's not just taking advantage. That's financial abuse." The term hit me like a physical blow. Financial abuse. I had never considered that what was happening could be categorized as abuse. But the systematic deception, manipulation, and exploitation certainly qualified. "What do I do now?" I asked, feeling completely lost. "First, you cancel any pending transfers," Alicia said practically. "Then you take care of yourself." "When's the last time you ate something?" I couldn't remember. Alicia took charge, ordering food delivery and making me shower while we waited. Simple acts of self-care felt monumental in my emotionally devastated state. As we picked at Thai food later, Alicia gently suggested I might need professional help processing this betrayal. "I have a friend who sees an amazing therapist, Dr. Rebecca Fisher. She specializes in family trauma. Would you consider talking to someone?" I nodded weakly. The thought of explaining this humiliating situation to a stranger was daunting, but I recognized I was in crisis. My entire identity had been built around being the responsible one, the provider, the successful daughter. Who was I if not those things? The next morning, I called my boss for the first time in my career to request emergency personal leave. "I need 2 weeks," I explained, my voice still raw from crying. "Family emergency." "Of course," she replied, concern evident in her voice. "Take whatever time you need. Your projects can wait." The irony wasn't lost on me. A family emergency caused by my family. That afternoon, I had my first video session with Dr. Fisher. She was a calm, straightforward woman in her 50s with kind eyes and zero tendency toward pity, which I appreciated. "Tell me what brought you here today, Kimberly," she said. I recounted the whole sordid story, showing her some of the screenshots when words failed me. She listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or making brief notes. "What you're experiencing is a profound grief," she said when I finished. "You're not just losing money. You're losing the family you thought you had, the relationship you believed existed." That framing helped me understand why this felt worse than any breakup or professional setback I'd ever experienced. I was grieving the death of my family, as I had understood it. The physical symptoms you're describing, insomnia, anxiety attacks, loss of appetite, these are normal trauma responses, Dr. Fisher continued. Your nervous system is in a state of high alert. Your basic sense of safety and trust has been violated by the people who should have been most trustworthy. Over the next week, I barely left my apartment except to walk around the block when Dr. Fisher insisted I needed fresh air and movement. Alicia checked on me daily, sometimes just sitting silently beside me when I couldn't bring myself to talk. The messages from my family continued. I still couldn't bear to read them, but Alicia offered to screen them for me. "They're mostly just damage control," she reported. "Your mom's playing the victim. Your dad's minimizing. Justin seems genuinely remorseful, but it's hard to tell if that's just because he got caught." I nodded, unsurprised by these reactions. They aligned perfectly with the family dynamics I now recognized had been present all along. As the initial shock began to fade, new emotions emerged. Rage unlike anything I'd ever experienced. How dare they treat me this way after everything I'd done for them? Humiliation at having been so thoroughly duped. And a deep, aching sense of loneliness. I had always thought that no matter what happened in my life, I had my family. Now I realized I never truly had them at all. I feel like such an idiot. I confessed during my 4th therapy session. All those red flags. The new car. The renovations. Justin quitting his job but always having money. How did I not see it? Because you are operating from a place of love and trust, Dr. Fisher replied. We don't typically approach family relationships with skepticism and suspicion. That's normal and healthy. What's not normal or healthy is how they exploited that trust. She helped me recognize that my tendency to caretake had roots in my childhood, when I'd taken on adult responsibilities at a young age. I had been conditioned to put my family's needs above my own, to find my worth in what I could provide rather than who I was. You learned early that love and worth were tied to utility, she explained. That's a lesson you'll need to unlearn. You have inherent value separate from what you can do for others. By the end of my 2-week leave, I had made some progress. I was eating regularly again. The panic attacks had subsided. I could discuss the situation without immediately dissolving into tears. But I still hadn't responded to any family communications or decided what to do next. You don't have to make any permanent decisions right now, Dr. Fisher assured me. But I do think you need to establish some boundaries for your own well-being. Boundaries? The concept was almost foreign to me when it came to my family. I had never said no to them. Never withheld help when asked. Never put my needs first. The thought of doing so now filled me with both terror and a strange sense of liberation. The night before returning to work, I finally opened the family group chat I had been added to after Justin's accidental text. There were dozens of messages, evolving from confusion to panic to various manipulation tactics as they realized the severity of the situation. Mom, Kimberly, you're misunderstanding everything. Call me right away.
Dad.
This is all being blown out of proportion. The chat was just jokes. Justin, I'm so sorry, Kim. I never should have gone along with any of this. Mom, after everything we've done for you, you owe us at least a conversation. Dad, do you know how much it costs to raise a child? We invested in your future. The most recent message was from my mother, sent just hours earlier. If you care about this family at all, you'll stop this childish, silent treatment and talk to us. If I cared about this family, the irony was staggering. I closed the chat without responding. I wasn't ready yet. First, I needed to reclaim what they had taken from me, not just money, but my sense of agency and self-worth. With Dr. Fisher's guidance, I began formulating a plan for the confrontation I knew was inevitable. I needed to face them on my terms, not theirs. And I needed to be stronger before I did. After 2 more weeks of therapy and careful preparation, I felt ready to confront my family. Dr. Fisher had helped me script key points I wanted to communicate and practiced responses to likely manipulation tactics they might employ. Remember, she cautioned during our final prep session, they've had years to perfect their methods of controlling and manipulating you. Don't expect them to suddenly become self-aware or genuinely remorseful when confronted. I decided to meet them on neutral ground, initially suggested a restaurant, but Dr. Fisher advised against public locations for potentially volatile emotional confrontations. Instead, I would go to their house, but with safeguards in place. Alicia would drive me there and wait outside. I would record the conversation on my phone for my own protection and future reference if I began to doubt myself. I set a firm 2-hour time limit and prepared an exit strategy. I texted the family group chat for the first time. I'll be coming to the house Saturday at 1 p.m. to talk. All 3 of you need to be there. The responses were immediate. Relief, declarations of love, assertions that this was all a big misunderstanding. I didn't respond further. Their words meant nothing to me now. I needed to see their faces when I confronted them with the truth. Saturday arrived crisp and clear. Alicia squeezed my hand as she parked across the street from my parents' house. I'll be right here the whole time, she promised. Text me the code word deadline if you need me to come in or call you with a fake emergency. I nodded, took a deep breath, and walked up the familiar path to the front door. Before I could knock, it swung open to reveal my mother, eyes puffy from crying or lack of sleep, forced smile firmly in place. "Kimberly, sweetheart," she began, reaching for an embrace. I stepped back, maintaining physical distance. "Let's go inside." Dad and Justin were waiting in the living room. Dad stood when I entered, his expression a calculated mix of concern and authority. Justin remained seated, shoulders hunched, unable to meet my eyes. "Kimberly," Dad started, "we're so glad you're finally ready to talk. This whole situation has been—" "I'm not here for your version of events," I interrupted calmly. "I've seen the group chat. I've seen the photos. I've seen the spreadsheet tracking how you've spent my money. I know about the lake house, the vacations, Justin's allowance, everything." The room fell silent. Mom's fake smile faltered. Dad's authoritative posture stiffened. Justin stared at the floor. "I've been sending you $5,000 every month for 5 years, I continued. "That's $300,000 total. Money I worked 60-hour weeks to earn. Money I sacrificed my own life goals for. Now, Kimberly," Dad attempted to regain control, "you're making it sound like we forced you to send that money. You offered." "I offered because I thought you needed it for essentials," I replied, my voice steady despite the anger burning inside me. "Not for luxury cars and vacation properties. We've worked hard all our lives," Mom interjected, tears welling in her eyes right on cue. "Is it so wrong for us to finally enjoy some comfort in our later years?" "The comfort isn't the issue," I said. "The deliberate deception is. You lied about medical tests that never happened. You claimed to need roof repairs while buying a lake house. You excluded me from family vacations my own money paid for. Those were just white lies," Dad dismissed with a wave. "Every family has their little secrets." I pulled out my phone and played one of the voice messages he had left after Justin's text mishap. "Kimberly, you're completely overreacting. The ATM thing was just a silly joke between your mother and brother. Of course, we don't think of you that way." Then I showed them the screenshot from a year earlier, Dad writing. "The ATM came through again. Boat fund is looking good." "Just jokes," I said flatly. "Funny, right?" No one laughed. "We never meant to hurt you," Mom tried, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "You planned it all," I countered. "Systematically. For years. The spreadsheet has a section called Future Asks with detailed notes on how to manipulate me for more money." Dad shifted strategies, his expression hardening. "After everything we did for you growing up, putting a roof over your head, food on the table, clothes on your back, this is how you repay us? By attacking us over a few private jokes." "I started working at 15 to help support this family," I reminded him. "I handed over every paycheck. I worked through high school and college while you protected Justin from any responsibility. I've been repaying you my entire life for doing the bare minimum parents are supposed to do. We gave you life." Mom cried, going for the ultimate guilt trip. "You owe us everything you have." "I owe you nothing," I said quietly, the realization crystallizing as I spoke the words. "Children aren't investments with expected returns. They're not retirement plans or ATMs." Justin finally looked up, his expression genuinely remorseful. "Kim, I'm really sorry. I should have said something sooner. It wasn't right, what we were doing." "Shut up, Justin," Dad snapped. "Don't let her turn you against us." I turned to my brother. "Did you know they were buying the lake house with my money?" He nodded miserably. "They said it would benefit all of us eventually. That you made so much money you'd never miss it. And the allowance they've been giving you? From my contributions?" Another nod. $2,000 a month. I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped me. "So, nearly half of what I sent each month went straight to you? While I worked overtime and skipped vacations to help the family?" Mom tried another approach, switching from aggression to pity. "You don't understand our situation, Kimberly. Your father's health isn't good. We needed security. His health was fine enough for golf club membership and European vacations," I countered. "And if you were so concerned about security, why spend my money on luxury items instead of saving it?" The conversation continued in circles. They denied, minimized, justified. When those tactics failed, they attacked. When attacks didn't work, they cried and pleaded. I remained calm throughout. A skilled Dr. Fisher had helped me practice extensively. After nearly 2 hours, it became painfully clear that they weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were only sorry they'd been caught. There was no genuine remorse, no real understanding of the pain they'd caused. "I think we're done here," I said finally, standing up. "What does that mean?" Mom asked, panic edging into her voice. "Are you still sending the monthly money?" That was her primary concern. Not our relationship. Not my emotional well-being. The money. "No," I said simply. "That arrangement is over permanently. You can't just cut us off." Dad exploded, his facade of reasonable authority finally cracking. "We're your parents. You have obligations." "My only obligation is to myself now," I replied. "I'll be sending a formal letter outlining my decision and expectations going forward. I suggest you adjust your financial plans accordingly." I turned to leave, but Justin jumped up to follow me to the door. "Kim, wait," he said quietly, out of earshot of our parents. "I really am sorry. I got caught up in it all, but I never felt right about it." I studied my brother's face, searching for sincerity. There was genuine regret there, but also the self-centered perspective of someone who had never had to face real consequences. "Actions speak louder than words, Justin," I said finally. "If you're truly sorry, make changes. Get a job. Stop taking their money, my money. Be better than this." He nodded solemnly. "I will. I promise." I didn't fully believe him, but I recognized the possibility for growth that seemed entirely absent in our parents. As I walked back to Alicia's car, I felt oddly light. The confrontation had gone almost exactly as Dr. Fisher predicted. There had been no miraculous moment of clarity from my parents, no tearful, genuine apology, no commitment to change. But I hadn't expected those things, not really. What I had needed was to speak my truth, to stand my ground, to reclaim my power. In that, I had succeeded completely. "How did it go?" Alicia asked as I slid into the passenger seat. I took a deep breath, surprised to find no tears threatening. "Exactly as expected. They're not sorry. They just want the money." She squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you." That took incredible strength. As we drove away, I didn't look back at the house that had never really been a home. I was moving forward now on my own terms. The day after the confrontation, I took decisive action. First, I permanently canceled the automatic monthly transfer to my parents. The simple act of clicking "Cancel Recurring Payment" felt monumentally empowering. Next, I made an appointment with financial advisor Rachel Thompson, recommended by Alicia. I needed to understand the full impact of what had happened and create a plan for my financial future, one that prioritized my needs for the first time. $300,000 over 5 years, Rachel summarized during our initial consultation. That's significant, but not irreparable damage to your long-term financial health, especially given your income level. She helped me create a recovery plan that included increasing my retirement contributions and establishing an emergency fund that was for my emergencies only. "Let's also do a full audit of all your accounts," she suggested. Sometimes when people have access to your funds in one way, they find other avenues as well. Her caution proved prescient. The audit revealed my parents had somehow gained access to one of my credit card accounts, charging nearly $20,000 over the past year for various purchases. I had missed it because the statements went to an old email address I rarely checked. "This is fraud," Rachel stated bluntly. "You have legal recourse here." I wasn't ready to pursue legal action against my family, but I did consult with attorney Sarah Jenkins to understand my options. She listened to my story with professional detachment that I found comforting after weeks of emotional intensity. "What happened to you is unfortunately common," she explained. "Family financial exploitation often goes unreported because of shame and complicated emotional ties." She helped me draft a formal letter to my parents, laying out exactly what I knew about their deception, the immediate cessation of financial support, and clear boundaries for any future contact. The letter specified that any attempts to manipulate me for money would result in complete termination of contact. "Send it by certified mail," Sarah advised. Keep a copy for your records. This creates a paper trail if you ever need to pursue legal remedies or a restraining order. The thought that I might someday need a restraining order against my own parents was surreal, but I followed her advice. The letter was dispatched the following day. As expected, the response was immediate and explosive. My phone blew up with calls and texts, ranging from tearful pleas to vicious accusations. I didn't respond to any of them, following Dr. Fisher's guidance about maintaining no contact during this critical boundary establishing phase. My parents tried every avenue to reach me. They contacted colleagues whose numbers they had from previous family gatherings. They showed up at my apartment building, only to be turned away by security after I had placed them on a restricted visitor list. They even created new email addresses when I blocked their primary ones. The most difficult test came when my father's sister, Aunt Linda, called me. I had always been close with her and answered without thinking. "Kimberly, honey," she began gently. "I'm worried about you. Your parents say you've cut them off completely, without explanation. That's not like you. Did they tell you why?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "They said you've become obsessed with money since your promotion and have forgotten family values. That you're punishing them for some perceived slight." I laughed without humor. "Ask them about the lake house they bought with my money while telling me they needed help with medical bills. Ask them about the group chat where they called me their ATM." Silence followed. "Then, there must be some misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding, Aunt Linda. I have screenshots, photos, spreadsheets. They systematically deceived me for years to fund their early retirement and Justin's lifestyle." More silence. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. But please don't call me again as their messenger. I'm establishing necessary boundaries after serious financial exploitation." That conversation, while painful, helped me practice articulating what had happened without shame or doubt. Each time I told my story, whether to Aunt Linda, to my therapist, or later to a small circle of trusted friends, it became easier to own my experience without feeling humiliated by it. As weeks passed, the desperate communications from my parents gradually decreased in frequency, though they occasionally tried new tactics. The most manipulative was an email from Mom claiming Dad was in the hospital with heart problems. Dr. Fisher had warned me to expect health emergency claims as a common manipulation strategy. "Verify independently before responding," she had advised. I called the hospital Mom had named. No patient by my father's name was registered there. Another deception, another confirmation that maintaining my boundaries was the right decision. Justin was the only family member who seemed to be making genuine changes. He texted occasionally, not asking for anything but simply checking in or sharing small updates about his life. He had found a job at a local marketing firm and moved into a shared apartment with friends. "I'm paying my own way for the first time," he wrote. "It's harder than I expected, but also feels good. I think I understand a little of what you've been doing all these years." It was a small step, but significant, coming from someone who had never had to take responsibility before. Professionally, I threw myself back into work with renewed focus. The clarity that came from removing the constant financial drain and emotional manipulation allowed me to channel my energy into projects I was passionate about. 6 months after cutting financial ties with my family, I received another promotion and substantial raise. "You've been exceptionally focused and innovative these past months," my boss commented during my performance review. "Whatever personal issues you were dealing with earlier this year, you've clearly overcome them." I smiled, knowing she couldn't possibly understand the magnitude of the transformation I'd undergone. It wasn't just that I had more money in my bank account. I had reclaimed my agency, my self-respect, and my future. The holiday season presented a new challenge. For the first time in my life, I wouldn't be spending Thanksgiving or Christmas with my family. The realization hit me harder than expected, triggering a wave of grief for the family I had thought I had. It's normal to mourn the loss of family traditions, even when the relationships were unhealthy, Dr. Fisher reassured me. Consider creating new traditions that reflect your values and priorities. Taking her advice, I decided to host a chosen family Thanksgiving at my apartment. I invited Alicia, her boyfriend, to colleagues who couldn't travel home, and my new friend Michael, whom I'd met through a work conference. As we sat around my dining table, sharing stories and laughter, I felt a different kind of belonging than I'd ever experienced with my biological family. These people chose to be here with me, not because of obligation or what I could provide, but simply because they enjoyed my company. Michael stayed after others had left, helping me clean up. Our friendship had been slowly evolving into something more, though I'd been hesitant to pursue it given my emotional state. "This was really special," he said as we washed dishes side by side. "Thank you for including me." "Thank you for coming," I replied. "It meant a lot to have you here." "I've noticed something," he said thoughtfully. "When I first met you at that conference, you seemed guarded. Always checking your phone, worried about something. You're different now, more present." I hadn't realized the change was so visible to others. I was carrying a heavy burden then, financial and emotional. "I've put it down now." "It looks good on you," he said simply. Freedom. Freedom. That was exactly it. For the first time since I was 15 years old, I wasn't responsible for anyone's financial well-being but my own. The money that I earned through my hard work and sacrifice was mine to allocate according to my own values and priorities. The weight of manipulated obligation had been lifted. I understood then that what I had done wasn't selfish or cruel, as my parents had claimed. It was necessary and long overdue. The chains I had broken weren't just financial. They were psychological chains forged in childhood that had kept me bound to an unhealthy dynamic where my worth was measured only by what I could provide. Taking back control of my finances had been just the beginning. I was taking back control of my entire life, one boundary at a time. 1 year after discovering the devastating truth about my family's deception, I sat in Dr. Fisher's office for what we had agreed would be our final regular session. We had been meeting monthly rather than weekly for the past 3 months, gradually decreasing the frequency as my healing progressed. "How would you describe your emotional state now compared to when we first met?" she asked. I considered the question carefully. A year ago, I felt completely shattered, like my entire understanding of my family and my place in it had been a lie. Now, I feel whole, not the same as before, but stronger in the broken places. She nodded approvingly. "That's a beautiful description of post-traumatic growth. You've not just recovered from the betrayal, you've used it as a catalyst for profound positive change." The changes were indeed profound. After cutting financial ties with my parents, I had discovered resources. I never knew I had money, certainly, but also time, emotional energy, and creative capacity that had previously been drained by their constant demands and manipulations. I had established clear, non-negotiable boundaries with my family. My parents were still in my life, but in a very limited and structured way. After 6 months of no contact, I had allowed a tentative reconnection on my terms, monthly phone calls, no discussion of money, and immediate termination of the call if they employed guilt or manipulation tactics. "How are those monthly calls going?" Dr. Fisher inquired. "Better than expected," I admitted. "They're still themselves, but the power dynamic has completely shifted. They know I'll hang up the moment they cross a line, and I've done it several times. Now they're much more careful." "And how does that make you feel, having that control?" "It's not about control," I realized as I spoke. "It's about respect. For the first time, I'm requiring them to treat me with basic respect if they want a relationship with me. The sad thing is, I don't think they really want a relationship that doesn't include financial benefit. Our calls are superficial, but I've accepted that's all they're capable of." My relationship with Justin had evolved differently. After our confrontation, he had made genuine efforts to change his life. He had maintained steady employment for nearly a year, moved into his own apartment, and even started paying back some of what he had taken from me, a gesture I appreciated more for its symbolism than the actual amount. "Justin came to visit last month," I told Dr. Fisher. "We had dinner at my place. He brought wine and actually apologized again, without prompting. Said he's been doing his own therapy work." "That's significant progress," she noted. "How is it spending time with him?" "Surprisingly comfortable. We're building something new. Not based on our old family dynamics, but as two adults who share history and are choosing to be in each other's lives. The most dramatic change had been in my relationship with myself. I had always defined my worth through achievement, productivity, and what I could provide for others. Learning to value myself intrinsically, regardless of external contributions, had been the most challenging and rewarding aspect of my healing journey. Part of that journey involved establishing the Williams Future Fund, a small foundation I created to provide scholarships and mentoring to working students from financially unstable backgrounds. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was still sending money to help others, but this time it was a conscious choice aligned with my values, not a manipulation based on exploitation. The foundation has been incredibly fulfilling, I shared. Last week I met our first 5 scholarship recipients. Seeing their determination and gratitude, it was healing in a way I hadn't anticipated. "You've transformed your pain into purpose," Dr. Fisher observed. "That's one of the most powerful forms of healing." My personal life had flourished as well. The friendship with Michael had blossomed into a relationship built on mutual respect, honesty, and healthy boundaries, a completely new experience for me. He knew my full story and had never once made me feel ashamed or foolish for what had happened. "Michael and I are talking about moving in together," I said, unable to suppress a smile. "It's both exciting and terrifying." "What's the terrifying part?" Dr. Fisher probed. "Trusting someone that completely again. Opening myself up to potential hurt. But you're doing it anyway. That's courage, Kimberly. Not the absence of fear, but action despite it." As our final session drew to a close, Dr. Fisher asked me what wisdom I would share with someone else experiencing family financial exploitation. I thought carefully before answering. I would tell them that family relationships shouldn't come with price tags. That love shouldn't be transactional. That they deserve to prioritize their own well-being without guilt. And most importantly, that they're not alone. This happens to so many people, but we don't talk about it because of shame. "Would you have been ready to hear that a year ago?" she asked. "Probably not," I admitted. I needed to come to those realizations in my own time, through my own journey. We ended our therapeutic relationship that day, though she left the door open for check-ins or future sessions if needed. Walking out of her office for the last time as a regular client, I felt a sense of graduation, a milestone achieved in the ongoing work of healing and growth. That evening, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset over Boston, reflecting on the painful but necessary wisdom I had gained. The betrayal had cost me the illusion of family, as I had understood it. But it had given me something far more valuable: authentic connection with others and myself, freedom from exploitative obligation, and the profound knowledge that I was enough, just as I was, without having to buy love or approval. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Dinner still on for 7? I have news about the apartment we looked at." I smiled as I replied affirmatively. Life moved forward. Not in the direction I had once imagined, but towards something potentially richer and more genuine than I had known was possible. The family that had treated me as an ATM had inadvertently taught me my true value. And that lesson, painful as it was, had proven priceless. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members over money issues? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to support more content about overcoming family financial exploitation. Remember, you deserve relationships based on genuine love, not transactions. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it helps anyone facing similar challenges know they aren't alone.